before. I lost that love before. I lost that love before.
Ryan,
Hey,
welcome.
thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to the draft today in Philly. That
Yeah,
was
it was
a
fun.
blast. It's the yards drafts are fun, man. I think it's it's cool to like one person that came with us today, like I'd never met before. So like, it's fun to be able to do that and do it in a pub or a brewery and bring people together. But welcome, man, and thank you. Like I'm so grateful to get to pick your brain right before CubeCon. Like this is like a seriously advantageous thing for me to get to talk to somebody that's so much better at Magic than me. So not to gas you up and make you feel uncomfortable as much as possible, but I'm very thankful that you're here. So Ryan, introduce yourself to the people that probably already know you because that's why they're clicking the video. But
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Saxe. Been playing Magic for 18 years.
Nice.
18 years. Although I haven't been playing that much lately. I wrote articles for Star City Games for I think about 5 years. I've written something like 450 articles about Limited on StarCityGames.com, and I'm just all limited all the time. I like to say I have small hands. They're too small to shuffle 60 cards. So I draft, I cube. I have played Constructed, but
Yeah.
it's not my shtick. So that's me in Magic. I like to marry a little bit sometimes between that and my work. I've done data analytics, machine learning, and stuff within Magic, building my own draft bots, a recommender system for cobra, all of that. But yeah.
The draft bot, that's something to ask you about for sure. That's not something that had come up, but yeah, now that you mentioned that, that's freaking fascinating. So 18 years ago. So, and I'm glad you mentioned that you have played Constructed, right? Because I feel like in our Magic journeys, even I believe that Cube is like where everybody should retire their Magic, but everybody usually has a speed bump in Constructed, or it's the whole ride, right? One of the two. But how did you start? Like, who was the person, or what group of friends, or what brought you into Magic? Like, how did young Ryan stumble into casting a Sarah Angel for the first time?
So for me, the card wasn't Sarah Angel. I think it's called Aurochs Herd.
All right.
I think
Solid.
it's Aurochs Herd. It's
Yeah.
I think it's 5 and a green for a 4/4 trample.
Yeah.
That I don't know when it enters the battlefield. I think it searches
It'll be
up
on the
another
screen.
4/4 trample.
It'll be on the screen.
Remember the card.
Yeah.
Anyways, why was it that card? So I 10-year-old me went to summer camp.
Okay.
I'm Jewish. I went to a Reformed Jewish camp called Eisner.
Okay.
Love that place.
Yeah.
Super special place in my heart for a variety of reasons.
For sure.
Introducing me to Magic is one of them.
Awesome.
I saw some people playing cards, so I wrote a letter to my parents asking for some Magic cards. Not even knowing what I didn't know what the cards were even right at that point. There were some dragons or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd seen there was I did see there was a counselor playing like a Shivan dragon, and that was of course a cool card. But they sent me next week in the mail a starter deck from Ice Age, which was, I think, mono green, based around the card type. I think it's pronounced Auroch, but I may be completely mispronouncing it, which are like woolly mammoths that I think they all get power. They all get like +1, like whenever an Auroch attacks, it gives all the other Aurochs +1/+0, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't remember that much about Aurochs, but that's what started me.
They're doing something.
Magic, yeah.
All right. So, where did it go from there? Like, so everybody had the camp council or camp Magic. When was your first experience in an LGS? Like, when did and then was there a significant gap, or was that the main road in?
No, there was a gap for sure. So
Okay.
I played Magic every summer.
Okay.
From when I was 10 to say 15.
Okay. But it didn't ever come home with you.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, because most of the people that I hung out with at school didn't play as much. So I played it at camp. I played it a little bit around here, but I didn't go to a store or anything like that. I would maybe go to Newberry Comics and buy packs.
Okay.
For my decks.
Yeah.
But that was that. We're talking everybody's decks were horrible and we're playing by the wrong rules.
Yeah.
Right? Like bounce lands, Ravnica bounce lands were the most broken thing because why would it return to your hand if you played it on turn 1? So if you could just play a bounce land on turn 1.
Yeah, of course.
And just untap and play a
Why
free
not?
drop. That was just how it worked.
Yeah.
But I stopped after I wasn't a camper anymore. Completely stopped playing.
Yeah.
Fast forward to my freshman year of college.
Okay.
It's maybe October, November, and I'm cleaning the apartment. Or the dorm, I guess. And I'm cleaning the dorm, and I see Magic cards under my roommate's bed. Which brings back all of these memories. We talk about it. We start building decks again. Find a place nearby. This was in New York City. The Uncommons, which is like a board game cafe there.
Yeah, that's a legendary spot, yeah.
Had opened. Their opening day was like a few weeks before that.
Okay.
And so we were one of the first like customers at the Uncommons. I know all of them. That became like my favorite spot in college. And I actually started, I think, playing more so Commander.
Yeah.
Funnily enough.
So this was like what year? Give me a time frame at this point.
2014.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say it had to be. Because there's a certain year where I feel like over half of the pipeline became Commander, of like into Magic.
Right.
Like
so I think it's just a little before then.
Okay.
Probably, but I'm not honestly. I don't know that much about when Commander became super popular.
Fair enough. So you were playing. So you college, Uncommons, and then Commander first.
Yeah. Well, I guess. I mean, really, Kitchen Table first, which eventually became Commander.
Yeah.
Like we're playing decks with like Gutter Snipes and Cloud Shifts and Banisher Priests or whatever.
Yeah.
Eventually, I built some Commander decks, which, if we go far enough, that's how I built my first cube. I sold all my Commander decks and built a cube.
Okay.
But I ended up being introduced to Draft. By BDM.
Okay.
I was at Uncommons. We were playing a game of Commander.
Yeah.
And he was playing with this gorgeous Sidisi deck, and he told me I should try Draft. And
what a fucking homeboy! What a homeboy!
Yeah.
Thank you, BDM. Just letting people know, hey man, 99 is a lot of cards. It's a lot.
I know.
Think of all those cards.
In my hands.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really cool story. But yeah, BDM is the one that got me to Draft. Like that's fucking sick. All right, so what set do you remember?
So, my actual first draft.
Yeah.
The first time I drafted was Theros. It was earlier than that.
Okay.
But I wasn't like into draft.
Yeah.
I didn't go to draft.
Yeah.
It wasn't cons. What was the set before cons? It was around that era, around Cons of Tarkir.
Yeah.
Well, no, it had to have been, right? Because Sidisi, he was playing a Sidisi Commander deck when this happened.
Okay. I was probably playing very sparingly at that point, so I don't.
So you know what? I'll bet you Sidisi was from Cons of Tarkir. It was Cons of Tarkir, and now that I'm remembering it, I think he was telling me about how there's this sweet, and again, I had drafted before, but we were talking, and he said stuff along the lines of that I would really like it, and there's this, you can draft all the lands and play all of these colors, and that was really what pushed me to start going every week.
Yeah.
Then twice a week, then 3 times a week, and really just like drafting a ton. So it was cons.
Yeah. So were you involved in the New York City Team Draft League?
Yes, not until later.
Okay.
So the league was around then, but I was still pretty bad at this time. I was not very good at Magic.
Yeah.
I remember I remember like around this time, like you learning about the vanilla test, right?
Yeah.
Through limited resources, and
Yeah.
being like, oh well, like a two mana 2/2 is good, and it just keeps you like a 4 mana 4/4, and like logically coming to the conclusion, well, this 1 mana 1/2 must be incredible.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But when did I? So I slowly started just going to the store over and over, getting
Yeah.
better, eventually becoming like, you know, like winning most of those drafts.
So let me ask you though, like, I mean, you're a very, very proficient limited player, right? Like, in that era where it sounds like that was like truly your growth as a player, like, what were the things, if you can remember, like, what did you use to get better? Was it just like reps and content consumption, like listening, like were you like listening to limited resources and watching players draft, or were you just getting reps and reading? Like, what was like your, like, how did you, because this is the answer that you're giving is going to end with the Team Draft League, which is just swimming with some of the most vicious sharks in the country, right? So like, how did you grow those scales? Like, you know.
The short answer isn't content. It's not reps. It's people.
Okay.
The groups that I was playing with kept changing, and they kept changing to have better players and better players and better players. I would start the worst in the group.
Yeah.
I would learn from the group. I would get better.
Yeah.
Then, as I get better, I start meeting more people who are then better than me, and I start playing with them more. So it wasn't about, for me, it wasn't about content consumption. That didn't even come, really, I didn't read articles until way later.
Yeah.
But I'm very social. I liked hanging out, and so picking people's brains and having them beat me was where I would say I got better.
Yeah. Interesting. So then, by that token, do you think one could extrapolate that, like, that's why there's a higher density of good limited players specifically in metro areas?
It's a good question. Probably. You see, like, I mean, New York has a bunch, but you also look at, you know, where CubeCon is, Madison, Wisconsin is like
sickos,
the
right? Roanoke, where like Star City is, right? Like, I was just down there a couple weekends ago to visit.
Well, because you have that community that learns from the best, right?
Yeah.
They get to aspire to a higher ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. I don't think I'd ever really thought about it like that, but I think it might actually over-index for limited specifically because, I mean, you can definitely grind out drafts on Magic Online, but I think, like, I don't know. I feel like there's just, like you said, like being able to talk to the people after the draft, being able to hang out with those people, build friendships with those people that are also very good drafters. You only get that from an in-person scene, right? Like, if you're just a limited junkie on Magic Online, like, you can get really good reps, but, like, you're not going to get 2 beers with the guys you drafted with afterwards and talking about everything that went on during the draft, right? Like, if you're doing a draft in New York or Philly or, like, some of those, I feel like that's something you're getting out of that, like, in-person community where, like, I don't know, recently there was a debate on Twitter about, like, you know, the value of being a pro and, like, you know, should you just dump everything into Magic Online? And it's like, you know, obviously everything in person is more expensive, but if you're in a metro area and you have a play, like, I feel like you can level up through play groups because there's a higher density of players, whereas, like, if you're in a smaller town, like, you might have a play group and those are the fucking 20 people that play Magic and that's it. In, like, New York, it's like there's thousands of people that play Magic, so, like, you can find your way, like, you know.
Yeah, it's,
you know, like, I know Finkel moved back to Philly, so, like, there will be a day when he comes to a Yards Cube. Like, it will happen. I won't rep. I interviewed him on Money Draft, so
nice.
Like, there is an in. We will pursue it. I want to do a Yards Draft one day with, like, Lamho and, like, Finkel and, like, a bunch of, like, the sickos. I'll get BDM to kick a train down. That's like a
Sounds sweet.
bucket list thing.
Yeah, I think So now there are so many more avenues to get good, and everybody is different. You can become the sickest Magic player sitting at home, and you in a way that 20 years ago wasn't possible.
That's like what happened with poker, right? Like,
but I think I don't know if limited is fundamentally different in terms of its benefiting from those types of communities. So I used to be a competitive dancer. And particularly the style that I loved the most was breakdancing, b-boy. And that's a very improv-driven style.
Yeah.
And so I've seen the way that I actually think about the juxtaposition from limited and constructed in terms of different areas of Magic is, I think there are different skill sets. I think constructed is a lot more like choreography, and limited is a lot more like improv. I think choreography, and this doesn't take away from the complexity of either of them.
Yeah.
But I think it is much easier to like download information that is out there when it comes to choreography, because you're learning about different sequences and steps and being able to maybe sit down and pick someone's brain. To me, maybe that's more important for limited, but honestly, sitting down and picking someone's brain about constructed is probably how I personally would have learned it myself anyways.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, I like jazz and I like classical music, right? And I like them for very different reasons, I very much enjoy constructing Magic. I don't like multiplayer Magic at all, though.
Not for me.
But yeah, I think it's a. I don't know. So then when? All right. When then did you move into the Team Draft League? So when did so we're in New York, we're grinding, who is your in? How did you give me as much of the scoop as you can.
There's a phase transition that many Magic players will know between being a Magic player and being a complete degenerate. And there became a point where instead of taking my prize packs from F&M and second draft of F&M and going home at 9 p.m. or even 11 when the second draft would end, there's the point where that transitioned into going to a bar or a diner, taking your packs, and everybody who won from their pods and team drafting.
Yeah.
And then doing another team draft. And then another team draft, and then going to breakfast. And so there was a semester in college in which, I was team drafting 8 times a week at least, and that's sort of when you learned about the league, started asking around who's in the league, ended up getting together a team. I was in there for a few seasons. I think I made the top 4 of all the seasons I played in Team Draft League. I don't think I ever bricked. I'm trying to remember. I think I won once and got second another time, but actually I don't know.
Yeah.
I usually have a very good memory, but I guess
I've never actually heard anyone discuss results of Team Draft League, so that's fair. The
Team Draft League, that's just, there's something. The best part about team draft, so usually, when people team draft, you're never team drafting with the same people, right? You're sitting down in a GP, you're sitting with some people and you're team drafting.
Yeah.
With the league, having a team that you're with the entire time, you start being able to learn each other's patterns and preferences in this crazy way.
Yeah.
I think there was
you were a dancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be similar, because I've done team sports and individual sports, but in sports and or even playing video games with I played WoW competitively for a while and doing Mythic Plus, which is a 5-person team thing, right? And that's something where if you're getting reps with the same people, it's intuitive, right?
Right.
And I can imagine, not a dancer, but I can imagine if you are a dancer, if you're dancing with a group of people or dancing with someone over and over and over again, you're built, it's just it becomes intuitive. And the same thing would be with limited proclivity.
Exactly.
Sure.
But one season I was on a team with Abe Corrigan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this was the Aether Revolt team draft season. There was a card in Aether Revolt called Aether Swimmer.
Yep.
Okay. 2 mana, 1/2 flyer. It attacks and it makes like a 1/1 artifact.
Yeah.
With some energy. Abe loved that card more than I've ever seen anyone love a common. It was a good common.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that he loved that card meant I could place him in whatever he was doing every draft.
Yeah.
And I could either feed him great cards that I knew would float to him, or I could get out of his way, or I could get into it if I knew he wasn't doing it. And so by knowing each other's preferences, you kind of... People say that you get worse decks in team draft, but sometimes if you really know your team and you can come up with different strategies, you can all elevate each other's decks by passing each other the good stuff if you're meticulous about managing who's next to you. I think team draft is closer to Cube in my love of Magic than I think people would think. I love it a lot.
A lot of people say that, and I'm actually entering my first team draft. I think it starts next week. So we'll be with. I'm on a team with Parker Lamaskis, who I've interviewed on the channel, and Quinn, who you met today.
Yeah.
So I'm very anxious. They're both way better at limited than I am, but it'll be fun. And I've done we talked about it. I think I wish there was more of a team draft scene in Philly when I was coming up. There was we did a lot of drafting, and the Penn drafts and Drexel drafts were where I learned how to draft, but there was never a team, a league that was huge when I was around. So I'm always envious, which is why anytime I talk to somebody from New York, I want to know. I'm so jealous. It's the coolest thing. So where then, at that point, when you had been in the team, when you entered the team draft league, had you already cubed at that point?
That's a good question.
What and
I definitely played a cube.
Okay.
The question is whether I owned one. I think not. I think, honestly, kind of happened similar times is probably the best way that I could put it.
Okay.
I don't know which came first.
Yeah.
But around the same time is when I started getting into Cube 2. Because this is the time in which I lived and breathed Magic.
Yeah.
Everything was Magic all the time.
Yeah. So, what was your first... So you mentioned that you sold all your Commander decks to build a cube.
Yeah.
Thank God you didn't build a cube out of your Commander decks.
I would not have done well.
So, how did you go about that? What was your first cube? What was your experience with that?
So,
I'm assuming it wasn't to build around the cube.
No.
Yeah.
My first cube, which eventually evolved into a cube that wasn't powered, but I wanted it to play as close to Vintage Cube as possible. I wanted it to be Vintage Cube, but where the fast mana comes at a cost. So think of this as City of Traders, Crystal Vein, if you know the card, Lotus Petal, Peat Bog, right? These there were a variety of tap lands that could produce 2 mana if you sacrifice them, or they could only produce it twice. So I could let people still do the turn 2 sneak attacks, tinkers, whatever that are stupid, but where if you interact with it, the interactive player ends up on cards instead of at parity. Was the idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're just soul crushing at that point, but yeah.
Just to add a little bit more tension, I think now, my desire for that was very much, 10 years ago or whenever it was, then I built my first cube. It felt like everybody wanted the experience of playing the stupid broken vintage cards that you don't usually get to play with but the delta between those cards and your next best fair cards, they used to be too big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and now that delta has
So
really closed. In fact, I think the fair cards have started surpassing them.
Yeah.
And so this idea isn't, I thought about it as a way of making Vintage Cube have a bit more archetypal diversity and a little bit more of a tension around the gameplay.
Yeah.
But the first version of the Cube was just pile of cards I loved. The two people that I worked on it with the most were Zach Hill and Andrew Prosser, who informed a lot about that cube. Lots of land destruction because I enjoy, when my opponent can't play Magic.
Yeah.
So I sinkhole, contamination, blood moon type type cards. The first version of the cube had Bituminous Blast. I
love that magic so much.
I said I would cut it. I would cut it once somebody cascades into Bloodbraid Elf into Shardless Agent, which happened on the second draft. Yeah, I love Cube.
Oh, dude. Have you done the Cascade Cube?
I have. I've played the
That's
Cascade.
so fun, dude.
Yeah.
God, that's so much fun. All right, so then when did you have any cube iterations between, or like, I guess at what point did the build around cube become a thing for you, and what was the path to that? Like, what made that a worthy pursuit for you?
So
yeah.
Talked about this a little on the side.
Yeah.
I like when things are hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can be a little bit of a masochist, which is why I like really spicy food. And so I love when drafts are challenging. When you gotta bang your head against the wall to get through them. And so the build around cube for me was the idea of how can I give players as many possible paths and options as possible without giving them generically good cards.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want... I'm not a fan. Some people love it. I'm not here to yuck anybody else's yum. There's nothing wrong with this. I do not like multicolored soup, good pile stuff.
Yeah.
And so as I was pushing cube on the higher ends of power, a lot of decks started to become just like collections of incredibly powerful good cards that maybe the deck did a thing, but it didn't sing. And so I'm also like a Johnny at heart.
Yeah.
Like a Johnny Spike is the way that I would describe myself. And so I wanted to build a cube that was incredibly difficult to draft, where you're just banging your head against the wall, but at the end of the day you can still get like a 10 out of 10 crazy deck. So in this cube, the highs are high, but the lows can be low if you miss.
Yeah.
And I like to think that I've done justice on tuning it to the degree where if you really know it's in the cube and you're a really skilled drafter, you shouldn't miss.
Fair enough. So, were you at CubeCon last year?
No. Big regret there.
Neither was I. So this will be our first CubeCon together. That's awesome. I'm really excited, and one of the things I made a little short on the YouTube channel about it, but I was chosen in the lottery for the rotisserie draft of Aqua's Cube, and I'm on the wheel. And I think, so we talked about this in the car a little bit on the way back from Philly, or I think it was actually between the train station and the draft, even before then. I'm on the wheel, and you said, "Oh, that's the best spot," and I was like, in my Discord, and like I talked to my friends, like I was like, "Yeah, I actually like I wanna like if you're not first, you almost want to be 8th. Because 8-9 in like my thought is the higher power of the cube, the more value there is in being able to take 2 picks in a row.
Yep.
And I don't know if the power level gets much higher than Aqua's cube in a rotisserie. I mean, like, I don't know, the turbo cube maybe, but just inherently, like, you know. But even then, I'm not sure, because the conspiracies are fucked. Like, playing a 35 card deck isn't, you know, like, that's not, you know, so, like, I'm going to be playing against someone who has a 35 card deck, because if that comes to me, I'm taking it. But the reason I'm bringing this up, other than just, like, we're both going to get to hang out in a couple weeks, and I'm so excited for that, is that you kind of broke Cube Twitter during a Cube draft that happened. I don't know if it was a Discord or what. Like, I don't know what it was, but you were in a Cube draft with a couple other Cube community members, and I think you were in 8th. Were you on the
7th? I was in 7th.
So you took the strip mine and then took the wasteland on the comeback. So you had 7 and 10.
So there was so there were 2 picks in between.
Yeah, so you had 7-10.
Yeah.
So, and this was a vintage cube, right?
Yep. No. It was a... Like,
is this the Bun Magic cube?
This is the Dakari cube.
Gwen's cube. Gwen's cube. Okay. Okay, so it was Gwen's cube, and you just face stomped everybody, pretty much.
That draft did I lose a game? I may have lost a game against Gwen on mono red. I'm not sure, but I think I did. Gwen and my match was tight.
Okay.
But yes, the games went very. I mean, that deck could do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there were games where I strip mine locked people. There were games when I mean, it was like a lands Dark Depths type deck at the end. Actually, so the thing about rotisserie draft is you never know what's going on in other people's heads, right? So the most contentious pick of that rotisserie draft was actually when I took Stoneforge Mystic. When I took Stoneforge Mystic, the sandbag between 2 players that both could have wanted it.
Yeah.
And I took it very early, and I think neither of them they had me on the green path to pair with my and I was never wavering from the that green path. Actually, the one fundamental mistake I made during that rotisserie draft is I had assumed Solitude was gone when it wasn't. So the actual I went Stoneforge, and I should have gone into Solitude. Yeah. I just didn't think I had assumed it was taken. Yeah. And then I actually probably the natural path would have been just White Weenie. But because of that, I stayed sort of on the green path. And the reason why I took the Stoneforge was I know someone's going mono red. So either that person has to hate my Batterskull, which is what ended up happening, or I have a great matchup there. I'm going to get this Cauldra for free. The beautiful thing about a card like Stoneforge in a rotisserie draft is once you take it, the other cards become completely undesirable for everybody else, and you get to use late picks on them. And the actual thing that I cared about was, hilariously, Lightning Greaves. Okay? The reason I wanted Lightning Greaves so bad is when it speeds up my clock with Dark Depths. I kill the turn that I make the
Interesting.
Token, right?
Interesting.
Being able to tear that up. I know what other people are doing. Again, it's a rotisserie draft. I know there's a Reanimator player. I'm playing the Green Sun Zenith deck, which means I have 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze. I protect my Scavenging Ooze again against Reanimator, and it's game over. Right? I had a variety of important cards in very important matchups, all of which I have 2 copies of because they're all Green Sun Zenith. So being able to tutor up this Lightning Greaves, which also increases my clock by a turn, felt important. And this was like pick 3 of the draft. So already I'm thinking about the deck all the way down there. And so the reason I took Stoneforge is I thought it fundamentally changed the way that I could build my deck.
Yeah.
And it gave me late picks that were going to be free and high value for my deck. And it hated the Stoneforge from the two people next to me as well. Now, I think the people next to me also got a little... I thought they would back off a little, but instead there ended up being a lot of fighting.
We sent people in the tilt-a-whirl. And
Exactly.
spin,
so there was
right?
The one thing was I lost my Explore due to that Stoneforge mistake. Which would have... Not Exploration, sorry. Which would have been really nice in my deck.
Yeah.
Anyways, enough. It was a sweet deck.
So it was a Naya lands deck.
Yeah, we're there. So it was definitely green base.
You're playing Ren and 6, so... And you were playing a white card, so I should...
Yeah, I mean, I also had an Omnath in there.
Okay.
In retrospect, I don't know if the Omnath was correct to play.
Okay.
But
I like the gambles.
Yeah. I mean, I can green some Zenith for it.
There you go.
So it was almost all green, some white cards, some red cards in there. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I don't. I'm not really sure what the fuck I'm gonna do.
Have fun.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. So are you playing in the main event at CubeCon?
I hope to.
Yeah.
Would be. I mean.
You gonna spike it?
I don't intend on preparing particularly much.
Okay.
Originally, there was a point where I was like, oh, I'm going to look at all the cubes and all this. And I think and a few years ago, that definitely would have been my plan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a competitive person.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to try and win every game, every draft that I play. But to me, Magic right now is a lot more about having fun and meeting people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to CubeCon for.
Fair enough. So then, like, that being said, right, and like, what are your goals for Magic going forward, or at least like right now, where you see where you're at? Like, do you think it's just like cube when I can, like always keep Magic as part of my life, or like are there any threads left to pull, or is it just like this is like a way to hang out with my friends, it's a hobby, like I'm in my groove? Like, where are you at with like your relationship with the game at this point now?
It's a good question. So I have achieved all of my like large goals that I had for myself in Magic. I've actually never been on the Pro Tour. Some people are surprised when they hear that, just because I've been playing for so long and I've been part of the competitive scene. I actually didn't really go to GPs, didn't really do the whole grind, because, and who knows if I ever would have gotten there. My goals in Magic, my biggest goals, were influence the way that people think about Limited. I think I've done that through all of my writing. There are some particular podcasts and articles that I think have changed the way that people fundamentally think about Limited. At least influence metagames at a Pro Tour, which I've done at multiple, whether through particular archetypes or through helping a person or team prepare. And then the last goal that I hit was that I mentioned at the beginning. I created an AI algorithm that I used to get to rank 27 Mythic on Arena. And, my goal was hit Mythic. When I hit Mythic, I was like, oh, can I push it to number 1? Didn't get to number 1, but got pretty high. And so the second a new goal gets added, the second there is something that I feel like I want to strive for, I can see myself making more time for Magic again. If I wake up one day and say I want to be on the Pro Tour, or I have a new idea for that draft bot. Yeah. Maybe I the closest thing that I could see happening is I go, you know what? I want to be able to make a draft bot that would work day one, no data.
Yeah.
No data, be able to take completely new format and just go and draft. But until then, I think for now, I like my relationship with Magic, which is mostly social.
Yeah.
I don't even play that much at home. I come to Cube events like this. I meet people, hang out. I still hang out in different Magic Discords, Magic Twitter, but I don't play so much.
Yeah. So, I'm glad you brought up the Magic Bot because I said I was going to ask you about it and then I didn't. So I definitely but before we wrap up, right? Like I'd definitely be remiss to just like have you repeat what you said, right? You coded a bot that drafted till 20 what Mythic in Arena?
27.
Okay, so you. I mean, I realize as a rational person that like a lot of getting to Mythic and Arena is time.
You want to know the stats?
I'm gonna yes, but but I like.
So I should first off let you know, it drafted, it built the decks. I played the games,
Okay.
so it was not automatically playing the games.
Of course, yeah. But like, to even be able to draft and build, did it sideboard or did you sideboard?
Best one.
Oh,
so didn't have to solve that problem.
Okay, for sure. Okay, interesting. So that's so crazy, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not even sure. I'm not even gonna pretend to have like the capacity to ask you an intelligent question about that. So like the only thing I'll say is like it's just like what would you like to say about it? Because like look, in my line of work, I have worked with some machine learning stuff and like, but like I don't know. I know how much it costs. So like
Expensive. Yeah.
it's expensive, but I don't. You know, I can't pretend to understand like. I mean, yeah, what kind of inputs you're using, or but like, what do you think would be interesting to share? What format was it? I guess would be a start.
It was Innistrad Crimson Vow.
Okay.
I think it was Crimson Vow.
Okay.
It was
Was this?
This was January 2022.
Okay. So now.
Yeah. So I built the bot. I started developing it in November.
Okay.
I finished developing it in December.
Oh, so you just fucking let this thing rip and it went to Mythic. That was my next question was going to be like, so like were there iterations where like you like had a set and you tried and it didn't get to Mythic?
So keep in mind this wasn't my first shot at a bot. So the first time I built a bot that drafted and stuff was 2019.
Okay.
Different math. I used that. I played on Magic Online. I went like 2-1. I did a few streams with it.
Yeah.
It was much worse. So this was not. I had built the deck builder was reusing code because I had built a deck builder a year ago in 2021 at some point.
Yeah.
So this was me taking everything, putting it all together, training it, looking at actually within my field. The thing that I love about it that maybe people will care to hear, forget about the actual algorithmic specifications. AI algorithms are pretty hard to understand sometimes, right? You can't necessarily know why they choose to make a certain decision. So debugging them, pardon my French, is pretty fucking hard. In fact, one of the biggest skill sets that separate a good from a great machine learning engineer is the ability to debug what the hell is going on inside. I think the reason I was able to get this bot to be so good was because of the tools I built that helped me debug it. I'll give you an example. When I was tuning it, when most people tune an AI algorithm, they look at their error, right? Oh, it's 80% accurate. What can I do to make it 85% accurate? I didn't care at all about the error because I'm an expert in draft, right? So what did I do? I trained my algorithm and I wrote code to simulate hundreds of drafts, thousands of drafts of just 8 tables of the bot with itself. And then I just looked at the draft logs. I just looked at the patterns in the draft and I said, weird. None of them are taking red cards. Like,
fuck that bot.
Like,
fuck that.
And I just looked and looked and looked in the draft logs for patterns that I often see less experienced players exhibit. Why did I do this? Because algorithms are trained based on data. And I don't have perfect data. I have data from real players. Players that make mistakes, that may not draft well. And so the first stage of any AI algorithm, and I think this is why a lot of people who have also messed around with building these things end up with something that's just okay, is because the first stage is going to gravitate to the mean. You build an algorithm, it's going to draft like an average player. So you look, what did it pick up from the average players? And then it became my job to figure out, okay, what can I do to change the math that would make it not do that? And I did that a few times. I stopped it from rare drafting. I, pushed it more to be balanced towards archetypes. I pushed it more to not commit as much to its first pick, and all of these different things, all coded in math to try and stop it from, doing the bad habits that were clearly exhibited in the data. And eventually, I ended up with a bot at the end that could bob and weave and navigate hard seats, read signals clearly. In fact, one of my favorite moments was, there was a point where it took a weird card in a pack. I think it was like some 1/4 that was like a reasonable common.
Yeah.
But there was a better common there.
Yeah.
And when I was like, why is it doing this? And I opened the bot underneath it had something called an attention mechanism.
Yeah.
So I could see, what is it paying attention to? And it was paying attention to 2 packs ago. And when I look in the 2 packs, what I had just seen, there was a gold card that was, one of those things that makes your, power toughness stuff switch, like you deal damage equal to toughness. And so it took the 1/4, that card, that Doran card, card wheels, and it takes that and it drafts like a big butt stack.
Yeah.
That it clearly, not to anthropomorphize the system, but was clearly the plan.
Yeah. That's that's
yeah. I'm very proud of that bot. But.
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty fucking impressive, man. Yeah. I'm not really sure where to go after that.
No.
I think
go back to Cube stuff. We can talk about Cube Cobra.
Yeah. I know that you've. I know I've talked to Gwen a little bit. We've just met this year virtually, so I'm very happy to meet him in CubeCon, and then eventually get my ass up to Boston and interview him at some point. But yeah, so what have you done for Cube Cobra?
So the things that I've done for Cube Cobra, so I built in 2021, yes, or was it 2020? It might have been 2020. You know what, I think I was living, it must have been during COVID. So during 2020, I built their recommender system. And recently, I didn't build their draft bots. One of the more interesting things about Cube Cobra is sometimes you do want to gravitate towards the mean, right?
Yeah.
My goal was to get as high rank as I could with my other draft bot.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a website like Cube Cobra, you need to consider the cost of the algorithm, if it's, how hard it is for the website to, for Gwen to maintain it.
Yeah.
And you have to think about does the draft bot on Cube Cobra need to be able to read signals and try and wheel cards and do all of that?
Yeah.
No, your players need to be able to experience something that makes it feel like they're drafting, with other people.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I helped Gwen. I didn't actually build the system. I helped Gwen build the system that is their current version of the draft bots, which is not the same algorithm that I built for the Retail Limited. But I think it's quite an improvement on what they had. And there is one additional improvement that if either Gwen or I end up having time to do, which we don't have that much time, hopefully we will.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that I think is cool about CubeCobra is their draft bots, everything's kind of all connected.
Yeah.
So there's a bot for building, there's a bot for recommending, there's a bot for drafting, and it's one system where they all see data from the other, right? The drafter sees the data from the deck builder and from the recommender and stuff like that. They're cool systems, but and I think overall, what CubeCobra's existence, Cube Tutor obviously beforehand did this as well. For the Cube community, is just unbelievable. I mean, it really democratizes the ability to build cubes. And
You said something about like CubeCobra democratizing information, and then it cut off.
yeah, we can go wherever you want from here. We've touched a lot on the tech side, which isn't what I'm here for. Too, we can talk about.
Well, I can pick your brain a lot about that, but I think, just while I have you, right?
Sure.
Like, I think, well, I guess I should ask, like, when left to your own devices, like, what kind of Magic do you like to play? Right? Like, not format-wise, but I don't know, what is your archetype?
Doomsday.
Okay.
As I said when I was describing my builder on Cube, I'm a Johnny Spike.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of combo decks, but not the 1-2 punch Splinter Twin type combo decks. The ones where you work so hard during the draft to make your deck like a 1-card combo.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why I love Doomsday.
Yeah.
In particular. It's a card that I think, honestly, it ends up not in cubes because people don't try and draft it. But there are Doomsday piles beyond Thassa's Oracle that work. One of the more hilarious ones that has been brought up to my attention is like Sneak Attack Emrakul.
Yeah.
Because even if that doesn't kill them, the Emrakul shuffles back in.
Yeah.
So you do win.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that you can do with that particular card, but I don't mean Doomsday as an archetype.
Yeah.
I mean, I love combo decks, but the ones where, the Storm adjacent, the different versions of Storm. My favorite Storm deck that I've ever drafted in a vintage cube, I got a turn 1 kill by going, I think I went land, Lion's Eye Diamond, discard my hand, don't do any, just discard my hand, reanimate Grizzlebrand using Unburial Rights, and storm off.
Nice. Nice.
So those are my those are what I love.
Yeah, that's fucking sweet. What kind of, I guess, when it comes to going to an event like CubeCon, right, where there's just the opportunity to do all kinds of cubes or any cube, right? Are there any cubes that you're excited about doing at CubeCon that you haven't done? And are there any cubes that you have done that you're really excited to do again?
Yeah, for sure. So, just the fact that CubeCon exists is the most lovely thing,
that's awesome.
Right? The fact that it's popularized the idea of this desert cube, which I had never heard of, and now I can see a bunch of them running around. And for me, I'm gonna not gravitate towards your classic styles of cubes,
Yeah.
nor the crazy out there ones. For example, I have a lot of fun with the Cascade cube. I haven't drafted the Turbo cube, but I would. But I know myself, and those cubes are going to exhaust my mental capacity. I'm not capable as a human being to turn off my brain. I can't sit there and go, I'm going to choose to take the suboptimal line, or I'm not going to think about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit there and go, I have 40 options, let me go down this tree. And for the real novelty cubes, like the Cascade Cube and stuff like that, when I've played them, I've had so much fun.
Yeah.
But I had to take a nap after. And so...
I hear that.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. They're super fun cubes. I love that they're in the tournament. Not going to be for me just because I think I will have so much fun with those cubes and then less fun personally with the other ones.
Yeah.
What I'll probably say is the cubes that are a spin on a classic. So I loved Gwen's Tiny Leaders Cube.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of structured like Legacy Cube in terms of the card quality and everything that's there, but it has this big twist on its head where everything is converted mana cost 3 or less. Excuse me, and you have a commander. So that's one I've done before. The other one that I really want to try out is Matt's Study in Harmony. I haven't gotten to draft that. I'm in the Discord, but I still can't get my Magic Online working. And just because it's possible that cube is like where my build-around cube's going.
Yeah.
Right? Like, like the way that it's structured, it seems very similar to where I would have gotten if I tried to take the concept of my build-around cube but embed it in like a Legacy Plus or Vintage cube instead of starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's other cubes that I'm pretty excited for. I don't know. I remember from the the voting, I don't actually know if it got in, but similarly, there is, I think it's Dom Harvey's Battle Something cube.
Okay.
I don't know if you know this. It's a cube where you basically, any creature can be your companion.
Okay.
And
interesting.
You just get to have a companion, which is cool. I like a
Yeah,
different,
that's cool.
a slight spin, something where I get to completely change the way that I think about the draft.
Yeah.
But where when I'm playing the games, I'm still playing Magic with the normal rule set that I know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds interesting. Dom's Cube. And I've never done the Tiny Leaders Cube.
That's a fun one.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited. So, look, man, is there anything else that you want to shout out or talk about before we wrap? Because I'm assuming you'll be in the CubeCon video at some point. So you won't be far off the channel. And I'd like to do a deep dive into the Build-Around Cube with you at some point, but I'll come to New York for that.
Yeah.
I will do the trip up.
Sure.
So,
give me a minute.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I mean, we chatted about a lot. I mean, if there's one thing that I could say, assuming people are going to watch this video when they're trying to get into Cube or anything, if there's one thing that I could say, because people ask me about building their own cubes so much, and I think everybody gets too hung up on some best solution existing. And I just don't think that's true. I think that we as people change so much over time anyways. Like, my cube was great for me 5 years ago, and then it wasn't, and I built the Build-Around Cube to more satiate what I was looking for in Magic at the time. Don't focus on archetypes. I mean, do whatever you want, but just play the cards that you think are fun. Start there. I think too many people, when they think about Cube, they start out and come in. They go, okay, I want, blue-red spells and some general stuff, and they build this like skeleton, and they try and fill it in with cards. I think personally, I find with my own cube projects, I end up with stuff that is more beautiful and harmonious, and I end up liking these cubes better when I start in and I work out. I start with, I want a cube where this card is good. Okay, what does that mean about the cube? And you branch out from cards to cards, and this, instead of ending up with some, rigid archetypes and synergies, you end up with an experience where you have a very diverse set of things you can do, where all of these cards interact with each other, because that's how you started. You started here, and you've added them to the web because they fit, instead of trying to make things fit in a web that you concocted at the beginning, but maybe as you started to build, it doesn't hold true to where you actually are. Yeah.
I'm not going to try to top that, and I'll probably make it a clip. Look, man, thank you. I
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. See you soon at CubeCon, man. Peace. All right. You did it. That's it.
Love before.